good evening, and welcome to another episode of Late Night Table Talk. My name's Eric Yurko. I'm going to be your host, and it's approaching midnight in Portugal, so it's midnight somewhere. We might as well get started. Joining me tonight is Amber Cook to talk to us a little bit about design, marketing, branding, and the changing face of the tabletop games industry. But before we get to Amber, as always, there are a few things I'd love to talk to you all about. First thing I want to do is I want to thank you again for joining us. We're currently in our first season of Late Night Table Talk. You may have seen some of the preseason episodes. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. We love that you're watching the show. Excited to have you here. So, the thing I want to talk to you all about tonight is a gaming update. Haven't really talked that much about what I've been playing on here outside of every so often here and there, and so I wanted to just devote one of these little monologue-y bits to what I've been trying. So, this one I'm going to try and focus on a bunch of games that I've only gotten a chance to play once, just to give a little bit of a fresh perspective on some things that have hit the table and haven't quite made it back there yet, for a variety of reasons. A lot of them are just that it's either just got them in, or they're a little bit logistically complicated to get to the table, or there's no online implementation of them. So, first one I want to talk about is Succulent from Renegade. So, Succulent, beautiful game. You're basically building a little succulent garden, trying to fulfill different projects, getting water crystals. I actually quite liked it at 2. Haven't gotten a chance to play it again, but I'm really looking forward to trying it. There's also In a Flash Firefighters from Haba. That one's a real-time tile laying game where you're trying to essentially build a long fire hose path to something that's on fire. You're competing against your opponent. It's super cute, especially thinking about, younger players or players who just want to play a quick tile laying game. Had a very good time with it. Fairy Trails, also quite enjoyable. You're essentially path building, and you're trying to build these sort of circuitous but completing paths to grab as many points as you can. Quite enjoyed it. Little Town from Yellow, that one was actually a lot of fun. It's an interesting little worker placement game, whereas you work on buying tiles that are essentially improvements, but your opponents can also place their workers there. So you're trying to balance the idea of, I want to buy improvements so I can get more points and build better improvements, with I don't necessarily want to give my opponent access to my improvements. Very interesting little game. Quite enjoyed it. Looking forward to playing it again. I got a chance to try the Princess Bride Adventure book game from Ravensburger. That one is honestly delightful. One of my friends is a very big Princess Bride fan, so I went through it with her and we played through the first scenario. We are probably saving that one to a chance to where we can safely play it in person, because she's a big enough Princess Bride fan that I am distinctly worried she'd beat me up if I played it without her. So, I just got to prioritize my own safety there. What else do we got here? Adventure Mart from DigiSprite and Hub Games is wonderful. Had a blast with it. It's a deck builder about essentially building out your own market for adventurers who are going on different adventures. It's a little bit more on the complex side, so compared to something like Bargain Quest, which is a similar theme, or your standard deck builders like Dominion, there's a little bit more to it, because there's also a bidding phase where you're trying to essentially price certain things so that they get bought by adventurers. But it's got great art, it's got a solid spin on a deck building concept, and I frankly had a lot of fun with it. Really, the only thing that's keeping it from the table is just that it is a little bit logistically complicated to set up, and it doesn't super play well remotely, so I haven't been able to get a few of my friends engaged with it, unless I sort of play it on the remote setup and have to deal with every card for every person, and that doesn't super work for deck builders because there's that private hand. One that I haven't seen or heard a lot about, but I really enjoyed, was Divvy Dice. So Divvy Dice has that sort of silver and gold thing going for it, where it's got dry erase cards, but this one's a little bit more about using the dice to fulfill challenges on the cards directly to get additional cards or bonuses. It's a fair bit more complex than, say, even silver and gold, frankly, but it was a lot of fun. Quite enjoyed it. And then last and certainly not least, I kind of danced around it getting to it, was the Castle of Tuscany. So I am, as you might guess, not the what's the delicate way to put this? I haven't played a lot of Feld games. Just haven't really been my genre. I did try Aquasphere, and it was pretty fun, mostly because of the they have little octopode meeples. Quite loved them. But Castle of Tuscany is sort of a lighter-ish entry in that fair, as you're building up your region by getting tiles, and placing tiles have all sorts of different effects. And I frankly loved it. I think it is super, and the only reason I haven't played it again is just that I haven't quite been able to wrangle my friend who I played it with for another game, and I also kind of want to like sprawl it out and try it again. And I've just been it's been a kind of hectic week. But I am super looking forward to try it again. It was probably one of the better gaming experiences I've had in the last like couple weeks. And it's always weird when you're just like bullish on a game as soon as you play it. That's happened a few times, especially this year, just trying a game and like we'll play it online or we'll play it remotely and I'll be like, did we love that? Was that a really good time? And yeah, sometimes it is. But I'll also check in with my guest about what she's been playing and sort of what games that she's got good impressions of. But if there are any games that y'all have played, especially if you've played them once, just gotten a taste of them and been like, do I want to try it again? Do I not want to try it again? I'd love to hear more about those first impressions in the comments, so feel free to drop any titles in there. I'm always looking for new stuff to try as well. So yeah. So let's bring on our guest, Amber Cook. Amber is one of my co-community members on the American Tabletop Awards, and she has frankly been instrumental in getting our branding and our sort of online presence together. Since everyone in this industry wears at least 3 hats anyways, she also works as the Director of Business Development for Roll20 and writes for her own project, the 100 Games Project. In her own words, she's passionate about beautiful design and helping independent games find their way to more tables and promoting diversity in gaming. So I'd love to hear more from her about that. So please welcome Amber Cook to Late Night Table Talk. Hey Amber, thanks so much for joining us. How are you doing?
I am good. How are you?
Doing pretty well. As I mentioned a little bit earlier in our conversation, the minor surgery kind of knocked me a little flat for a couple of days, but I seem to be doing better now, which is good.
I recommend surgery during COVID. It's the right time.
Yeah, well, on one hand, I was like, it's not like I have to leave the house, but on the other hand, it's like, oh, I really prefer not to be going into like certain areas. Mm-hmm. But what can you do? Anyway, so mostly I just wanted to, chat about what's new. So what's going on with you? What have you been up to?
I'm working a lot. Working a lot. I'm playing a lot of RPGs. Mm-hmm. I just painted my bedroom.
Oh yeah, I was gonna ask. I can see a little bit of the painter's tape on the window nearby. I actually really like the color.
Thank you. Yeah. What else have I been doing? I've been playing outside a lot with my 2-year-old James.
Nice.
Who like you can't take him anywhere, so we just go outside. And yeah. I don't know. What else have I been doing? That's about it. I think that's jigsaw puzzles, a lot of jigsaw puzzles.
Oh yeah, puzzles are great.
Yeah.
I think Death Cab for Cutie was selling a like jigsaw puzzle of all their album covers, and I was like, I think I will buy this actually. I haven't built it yet, but is it built?
I've done like 10. I've done all the Charlie Harper ones. Mm-hmm. Have you seen those? Like there's a whole new line of Charlie Harper puzzles, and I really love Charlie Harper. So like all kinds of nature puzzles, but they're sort of abstract,
Are they like photos or are they like art puzzles? Because I've done the photo ones, and I've had a nightmare of a time because the photos aren't like high res or like high DPI enough that you can tell them apart from like on certain small pieces. And so there's like 50 or 60 pieces that just all look.
No, they're paintings. They're really cute.
Oh, okay. That's nice. Yeah, I got into Legos for a little bit. That was a lot of fun. Bought the like ship in a bottle one.
That's nice. I want to do a Lego thing. There's a VW van.
Oh yeah.
I want that one. That's
really cool. I think they just announced they're releasing like the Roman Colosseum, which is their like biggest build ever because Lego fully understands that all of us are kind of bored.
Yeah, we have a lot.
They're like, here, it's like 35,000 pieces.
Honestly, my dining room table, like I haven't had enough room to open up a board game box because I've had this like giant yellow, one of those rollable mats for jigsaw puzzles that has like the inflatable tube in it so you can bundle it up. And it's just been laying out there for probably a month.
Oh yeah.
now. Yeah.
That's kind of what I have. I have a like a storage space that's the left half of my dining room table where it's just all the board games that I get for review purposes that I realize through some combination of things I can't currently play with the remote setup that I have. So
Hmm.
if I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, this is really fun, but it has a real-time element, and I can't do that remotely. Or, oh, this looks really cool, but it's almost entirely dexterity. Like I got maybe six-ish really cool games from Happy Baobab out in South Korea, and they're almost all family weight dexterity games, which are my bread and butter, but I can play none of them right now.
So sad.
Yep, they exist solely to mock me as I go to get breakfast.
I think that someone at work is making me a crokinole board right now,
Ooh,
and I'm pretty sure. And like they made their first one, and I told them I'd pay them to make another one for me because it was just gorgeous.
right.
And so, if that's the case, I'm going to be really disappointed when a crokinole board is shipped to me and I don't have anybody to play with.
Yeah, that's kind of the challenge. So I was talking to Ruel about it last month, and he plays with his family, so he's just like all up on the Crokinole game. I'd like to. I haven't actually tried it before, which I know is kind of off-brand for me, like loving dexterity games.
You
But
haven't played crokinole before?
no, I ended up. I think I was going to play it at BGG Con a
With
few years
me. I
back.
think you were with me at BGG Con last year,
Last year, yeah, but we were playing a lot of Animal Upon Animal.
but I thought that we didn't know. I think um hmm, I could have
It's
sworn that I like tried to direct. Maybe I tried to, and you did not comply. That might be
That
possible.
sounds on brand for me. I think I was too busy mourning that usually at BGG they have that Seolan board, the one where
Hmm.
it's like the really long one where you have to like sorry, actually this is my left hand. You have to slide pucks into those like
Yeah.
tiny they didn't have it last year at BGG and I was like deeply heartbroken because that's always my BGG. Like friends are great, but I'm really here for that like really nice Seolan board.
I didn't notice it missing last year, but the dexterity space was so different than it usually feels. Yeah.
Yeah, the only two things that I really thought about game wise were missing the Seolan board and were we playing Azul Summer Pavilion?
Hmm.
And how I spent the entirety of that game just looking over at the crew and being like,
Yeah.
oh, but we could
Yeah,
play the
you did
crew
that.
again.
Yeah.
I did the
Yeah.
entire thing.
Hmm.
I
That's great.
just really liked the crew. All right,
We
well,
played a lot of games together at BGG Con last year. We played
yeah.
what is the like what's the like scissor
Oh,
style
Club
roll
Cut
and write
Parts.
thing?
Yeah,
Yes, I loved that game.
I also love that game. That one,
Yeah.
I'm a little bummed only because I don't hear that much about it these days. But I was like, yeah, one, it comes with its own scissors, wildly underrated in a game in like just a gaming environment where I live at a house where my housemates will run off with pairs of scissors every now and then, but they never think to check inside the board game box.
I
So I'm
don't
just
think
like,
those scissors are terribly effective for most uses, though. They're like kindergarten safe scissors.
I mean, yeah, and like imagine if Renegade was selling like industrial grade scissors, because my dad would always be like, "Oh, you don't shouldn't play with those scissors; they'll take your finger off." And I'm like, "Well, that's all I'm thinking about now, Dad."
Or
Well,
like fabric shears. Like you're not supposed to use those for anything other than fabric,
right,
and they're very expensive.
right,
So you screw them up immediately. And if
right.
we just immediately use them on paper, it'd be really sad.
Yeah, that's also on brand though. I
Mm.
just feel like there's a lot of things you could do with the clip cut parks thing, and I'm kind of hoping Renegade like circles back around to it. Because I was like, I played it and I was like, I love this concept. I would like to play more of it. I would also like to just see more of the game in this space kind of move forward.
You need
But
like games with protractors next.
maybe just like get the whole like high school geometry set going for them.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
could work. I mean, if anyone could pull it off, it's probably Renegade.
I believe in them.
Yep. Okay, well, I can ask you a question that I hate when people ask me, so I'll just like I'll reword it a little bit so it's a little bit more polite. But what's Amber playing? It's like,
Ugh.
right?
Honestly,
See, it's irritating.
well, I've been playing a lot of Suro lately,
Oh, I do like Sura. Yeah.
and I've been
Which one
playing,
have you been playing?
well, the original. That's my favorite.
Mhm.
The reason I've been playing it is because I work at Roll20, and I'm constantly on Roll20 because that's for work. And there's someone who who makes like content for our marketplace, like makes map packs and all kinds of stuff so people can set up their maps for RPGs.
Mhm.
And he built out a bunch of games really beautifully and gave me a copy of that build. Like he built them out for personal use, but did it like in this really, really beautiful way, where there's like textured it looks like a deluxe version of Sorrow with like,
Mhm.
some sort of paper mat. And
Ooh, that's
anyway,
nice.
yeah, there's like plants around. It's really cute. So
Very aesthetic.
yeah, and so I've been basically just using that nonstop. And a lot of the people that I work with either don't play that many games or they play mostly RPGs. So having really light board games for them to play is nice. So I can kind of like happy
We
hour stuff.
probably played like 50, 60 games of Suro when I was first getting started in board gaming. Like
Yeah.
we would just go back to it because it seats 8 people, right? So you're just
Right.
like,
And they don't have to do anything. Like
right.
yeah. And so it's really easy to like have happy hour and play Suro or something and feel like you have an activity. So I've probably sold a lot of copies of Suro in the last month because
Right.
I've
That's
taught
been
everybody
me
to
and
play
Underdesk Ellipticals.
them. Yeah.
It's like I've coalesced all that influencer power into one thing, and it's that I've gotten really good at convincing people that this is the right time for them to buy an Underdesk Elliptical. I don't
Yeah.
know why, but I've like sold 5 of them.
I mean, I did that with Pelotons and I've sold a few.
I would probably get a Peloton if I had like more room space for it, but that's an
Yeah.
entirely different conversation. Yeah, I think we ended up going more for Sewer of the Seas because we liked the arbitrary instant death condition where you'd like roll the dice and a sea monster would just come out of the sky and fall directly on your boat and kill you instantly.
Okay.
We felt like there was something poetic about just like the like you're playing it perfectly, you've got everything going for you, you're like I'm on a path that no one can mess with, and then suddenly out of the sky you just lose.
I mean, I'd happily play that. I think that I just need somebody else to build it out for me because now I've been spoiled by a talented illustrator building out games,
Sure.
and if I did it, it's going to look terrible.
I mean, yeah, you can imagine. Actually, you don't even have to imagine. At one point, I did build a physical version of Suro that was people size. We got a bunch of cardboard boxes from like Office Max, and we cut the edges off to make like tiles that you could stand on. And so, for an activity we were doing for my old college group, we built a life-size version. Team would have one representative be the person who's on the tiles, like navigating through it. It was a lot of fun, actually.
You know what somebody did that was really cool recently? Somebody that I know that lives not too far from me in Maryland. They were trying to make it so that their kids could play board games and they could play board games with neighbors being
Sure.
socially distanced. So they basically set up a system so they could play Risk in their backyard, like life-size Risk, so everybody could still stay far away. And then they did Forbidden Island
Hmm.
the same way. Really cool.
Oh yeah, the like big board games thing is super fun. We originally had, I think it's because when we first did it they had maybe life-size Trouble was like our big game, and then we eventually were like we could probably go a little bit more complex, and so we did life-size Suro, and it was just a lot of fun to have like a bunch of people back when you could be within like 6 feet of other people, just all kind of huddling on these tiles. Then you'd like bump into someone else and you'd be like, oh, we're both out.
Have you seen Calliope has life-size Suro at
Hmm.
conventions?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
I've
was
seen
funny
it.
because like when I went to conventions, I was like, "Oh, we built that," but it was a lot worse because we made it with cardboard boxes and duct tape.
Right. It'd be cool to do it with Carcassonne too.
Oh yeah, yeah, life-size Kark would be amazing. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it would be
I
very
don't want to
amazing
store
on
it, but
that, and also it would be very amazing unless you were the person who someone's like, "Hey, hey, I know it's turn 3. I need you to go lay on that tile." We're like, "Am I gonna be able to get back up?" No. Well, how
yeah.
much longer do you think the game's gonna be? About 2 hours. And you're like, I need to get some water, and they're like, no, you're farming.
I
Yeah,
was thinking you just have like meeples for that, but I guess you could use, children, your friends, your neighbors, whatever you need.
absolutely. You just draft people, and you're like, no, no, we're doing this like all in person. Have you tried Phoenix Rising, the new Suro?
Mm, no. I feel like I only play old board games unless I'm at conventions and no
I'm always
conventions.
confused at what old board games are, anyways, because occasionally I'll be like, oh, that game from 2017, absolute classic, and people will look at me like I have 2 heads, and I'll be like, a lot of games have come out.
Yeah, well, you see more of them than I do, I think.
I'm just
Look at your background versus my background.
I set this up like a couple hours ago. This is not it's not my standard background because I think my workmates would be like, "Why do you have so many board games?" And I'd be like, "Oh, man." Yeah, ever so often someone finds out about it. Like my manager found out about like my blog a few years back, and I was just like, I had no idea where that was, like, where that conversation was going. He's like, "So I noticed that you write a blog. I was reading it the other day." I'm like, "Oh."
Were they complimenting you?
Oh yeah, I mean that's actually so it's actually a funny story. Part of I'm doing a little bit less software engineering work. I'm doing a little bit more like technical content writing, and so part of one of the people who was like pushing me to get more into writing as like a career path was my manager, because he's like, "I've seen your writing online, and I think it's really good. You should actually like consider doing more writing. Like, feel like it's something that would make you really happy," and it is. So to his credit, like that's some good management right there. But I'm also like maybe mildly embarrassed that my like board game blogging may have led to a larger career shift for me.
Yeah, yeah. No, I don't ever want anyone to read what I write, like ever.
Yeah, I got a email from the local newspaper from my like hometown where I grew up, being like, "Hey, so we like found your stuff online. We'd love to like talk to you about it." And so I like called my dad. I was like, "Hey, Dad, so this might be happening. Is it gonna embarrass you until the end of time if there's like a feature in the local newspaper about your son being just the biggest nerd in town?" Like someone's like, "Oh, hey, that's Richard's kid. Wow, kid's a nerd."
How did Richard feel? Did Richard like
Oh,
it?
he was very supportive. I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, thanks, Dad."
I think he probably knows you by now.
Yeah, he doesn't really. I got him to try Gone Clever. I think that was my like big thing. He's like he owns one of those little digital Yahtzees, and he's like, "Yeah, this is the height of luxury." To quote John Mulaney, it's just sitting at home playing this like tiny little digital Yahtzee. And I was like, "Well, if you like Yahtzee, do you want to try maybe a a different game?" And so
Gone
I
Clever is like diving in deep though, because it feels a little bit like doing your taxes. I mean, and I say that in the most complimentary way possible because I
No,
love
you're right.
that
Like
kind of thing. But
it's
it's that.
Yahtzee, but you're like, but now that you have rolled a 6, I will take 37 more distinct turns.
I would have started with Quicks or
I mean,
like
that would have made more sense. I probably would
yeah.
have taken him through like Quinto is probably
Hmm.
my big fave in the like light roll and rights. But I had a version of Gone Shun Clever handy because I had one of the paper pads, and I had. Did you ever play Favelas?
Mm-mm.
WizKids, cute game. Quanchai did a lot of the art, but it has these big chunky dice that are almost exactly the same color as the Ganshun Clever dice. So I had a copy of Favelas nearby that I just kept the Ganshun Clever pad in, because I was like, well, I mean, if I'm traveling with one, I'm traveling with both, so it mostly works out. And so I just happen to have it handy.
It makes me so anxious to take apart board games like that.
Well, I never. It wasn't strictly the Gons pads. It was I think BGG had it online. It was like a print and play that has in my opinion, slightly better structured uh, scoreboard for guns.
Oh yeah, I haven't
Yeah,
seen that.
I think it moves some of the stuff off the back of the score sheet to the side
Mm,
of the score sheet, and so it makes it so you can like view both the front and the back simultaneously.
I should get that. Although I'm not. It's not like I'm playing Gone Clever with anyone right now.
Right. I
But
haven't
I
broken out
could.
later in a few months. I can feel Suzanne getting increasingly disappointed in me as like more roll and writes come out, and I'm like, this is nice, but I haven't really laminated anything in like a hot minute.
I never did laminate anything, but I really did appreciate silver and gold already being, dry erase worthy.
Oh, you should try Divi Dice. The cards in, let me see here, move the hand. Yeah, it's still pointing that way. But the cards in Divi Dice are dry erase.
Okay.
Yeah,
I love a good dry erase situation.
yeah, it's definitely not the same like um spatial structuring game that Silver and Gold is. It's a lot more like combos, patterns, and bonuses.
Hmm.
It's slightly Gonzier, I think is what
But
I
I
would say.
like Gons. That's good. I like it being a little more complicated.
Oh, it's definitely a little bit more complicated. I'm a big fan. If we can ever figure out a way to play remotely, I will let you know.
I've been thinking about how to do that, but I have not thought very clearly about it.
Yeah, no, I haven't quite gotten around to it either.
Yeah.
It's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah.
All right, so let me think here. So the next thing we should do is I've been playing a game with a few of my guests that I've been calling. So what we're going to do is, and thankfully my brain is entirely empty right now, but I'm going to come up with a name of a game, and we're going to spend a few minutes trying to like collaboratively improv our way to something approximating a game design. For all the publishers that are listening, they can sign us immediately. We'll make it big, and we'll live the rest of our lives out on the royalties that we collect from this thing that we're going to come up with in the next 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, I mean, the ideas are where the money is at. It's definitely not like the curated playtest hours and hours of work that go into games.
No.
Right?
Playtesting's
Just
for
the
suckers.
concepts are where the money is.
We can all agree on this. Super glad this is getting recorded. I'm just imagining years from now, just sitting somewhere and someone just pulls up a video of me going, playtesting's for suckers. And like, is that really how you feel, Mr. Yurko? And I'm like, no. Anyway, okay, let me craft something in the deep throes of my brain.
I mean, do you want me to come up with a name for you?
Oh no, I've got something. I'm just gonna I'm working my way around to it.
Okay.
Okay. Here's the pitch. Name of the game is Royalty.
Oh no.
Oh yes.
Do we have is it like royalty or is it like royalties?
It's just the singular word royalty. You may interpret that however you want.
Okay. So, okay. I mean, I want it to be then about, like, becoming royalty. I don't want it to be like royalties as payments.
Sure.
Okay.
You could do both and have it be about being a monarch who is licensing out their image to companies.
Their monarchy.
Yeah.
That's complicated.
Oh,
I
yeah.
want it to be about making something like. What about if it's about becoming like the king of something, like like being crowned? Like that's what I want it to be.
Okay, so sort of like, are you thinking about becoming the king of like a realm, or are you talking more like, have you played Champed Up on Jackbox? They basically give you a random category, like the champion of sadness, and then you have to draw a like character that roughly approximates that, and they compete against other characters.
The saddest of all sad things is a superlative thing.
Yeah, so like you're just drawing a picture of like what the champion of sadness looks like. So are you thinking more like you want to become Juan Carlos, King of Spain, or are you thinking that like the game is going to assign some criteria to like maybe even like the example I was thinking is like, have you ever played Careers?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sorry, no one's ever answered yes to that, so I was winding up for an explanation. And I'm just like, oh. Okay,
I've played really random things.
Careers is one of my favorite old games, but like that success formula where you want to get like some combination of fame, happiness, and money. Like it could be that you become the king of money, and now the game changes because all of the same mechanics are in place, but now you want to spend the whole game focusing on money rather than focusing on something else for like replay value. Like where are you thinking in that space?
Animal King, like you're like the you're like the best dog, like something like that.
Everyone's dream, yes.
What's that?
Everyone's dream, yes.
Yeah. You're like the best. You're like the prince of dogs or the princess of dogs or something.
Sure.
Okay. But then you have to do something to become that, and I don't know what that is though. It's like some sort of race, or is it like some sort of best in show thing? Like, can we have something about a dog show?
Yeah, I think that's fair. You could become like dog royalty by winning your way through the dog show. Okay, so what are you thinking like genre wise? Is this going to be like a very crunchy like point salad like Feldy and Euro as you like try to compete in a bunch of different categories to earn points to become the best dog?
No, nobody has bandwidth for that right now.
You're right. Is it going to be it's going to be more like a dexterity thing, or it's like, here are a bunch of physical challenges your dog needs to be able to do, and so you each pick
cute.
like
What's the like flicking game that was from Plaid Hat? Was it Plaid Hat that put that out, or the other company that bought Plaid Hat? You know what I'm saying? Like it's like a Western game.
Oh yeah, flick them up.
Yeah,
It
yeah. Like
was
if it was like almost like a little matted area, and it's like the dog could be going through like an obstacle course kind of thing. You know who'd be really good at putting that out is Sarah from Renegade. Another game for them.
that's fair.
Yeah,
So what
yeah.
you could do is you could have it be like 4 different dexterity challenges.
Hmm.
And so they're like, one of them's, you want to be like, you want to create a little dog pyramid. So you get a bunch of other dogs and you have to like stack them animal upon animal style.
Yeah, or they
One
have
of
to
them's
like
like,
go through the little hoop, or they have
mhm,
to like go up a ramp and then like, wiggle around some like little, traffic cones or
right.
something.
Or everyone's doing them at the same time. And so you have to like speed your way through one of them. So one of them's like a race component. And so as you like compete in these various challenges, you get maybe like boons that you can carry to the next challenge. And you end up at a spot where you're like, my dog has won sufficient challenges to be crowned like best in show.
And they get a ribbon. And I also would really like it if they had to like wear something, because it seems to me that like all of these weird dog show things, like you have to wear like there's some dog wearing a bow or like,
Mhm.
some sort of accessory. And at one point they have to like keep it on through some sort of obstacle course as you're pushing them through it.
I think that's reasonable. So what you could do is you could have it be like everyone drafts their dog at the start of the game, and then everyone drafts an accessory of some kind, and like different accessories are more challenging for for certain things. So like the hat stays on really well, but if you're trying to stack dogs, it's hard to like stack a dog on top of your dog with the hat because the hat like contributes to it weird.
Yeah, I think we've done a really good job with this game.
Yeah, I think we could. I think we could probably make it work. I think especially right now, people would want a like heartwarming dog show game.
Yeah, especially if you could partner with a company that makes lots of cute little dog meeples,
Hmm.
because
Yeah, so you got
also
like
a
the
lot of people
got
have
a little
gotten
like
dogs.
corgi one, so it doesn't go as fast in the race because it's just not quite like it's just got those tiny legs. It's doing its best, but yeah, no, I could see this. I could see this being pretty successful
Hmm.
because you could imagine like spinning it up by having like almost like one of the tracks could be essentially like a pitch car little mini game sort of thing where you've got like the dogs of the obstacle course and everyone collaborates on building the obstacle course at the start of the game.
Yeah, yeah. And I think you could even have like different gauntlet of like challenges down for each different game. Like there could
Mhm.
be like, 10 different runs that you have to go through, and then like there's three that you do for this specific game. So there's some
Right. You
replayability.
draw them out so that way you've got like, oh, we're doing challenges 1, 3, and 5, and that's going to change the board. That's also going to change the dogs that are in play. And so
Hmm.
you maybe do more challenges with fewer players and like fewer challenges with more players. That way the playtime doesn't start spiraling out of control.
There you go. Although I will say this game does not sound like it should be called Royalty. You know, it should be called like Best in Show.
It probably should.
That's what we
Yeah,
got to.
yeah. Sometimes you pivot on the names. Not every
Hmm.
like you start with a seed, you build the game around it, and then you pivot the name at the end.
Hmm. Yeah, its playtest name was Royalty, and then it
Right.
turned into Best in Show.
That's our code names. People are like, oh, what's it going to be about? Is it going to be a crunchy midweight euro? And they're like, yeah, it's definitely what's happening here. Eric and Amber making one of those crunchy midweight euros.
You know what I really like is when Eric Lang has prototypes, he puts them in like this case kind of thing, and they have code names on the outside of them. It's almost like I think it has a clipboard on the outside, but it's like a sealed clipped box.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really want a bunch of little dog meeples inside one of those boxes.
You
It would
just
make me
like
feel very
you have
official.
like a very big briefcase and you're going
Yeah.
through the airport and they're like, ma'am, we're gonna have to ask you to like open the briefcase and you just open it up and there's just a bunch of little dogs inside. The TSA person's like, oh, so cute. And that's
Also,
like
are
the
you an
entire.
adult?
And you're like, of course I'm an adult. I have a briefcase. Have you ever seen a child with a briefcase? And they're like, no, I have not. That's the
But I
whole
have seen a
conversation.
child with a dollhouse.
That's true.
Mhm. I think
Okay,
we
okay.
did it.
Yeah, no, I think we crushed this. So
Yeah, we
yeah, anyone looking to just sign an idea for a game with no playtesting whatsoever, this is it. This is the moment. Get an idea patent on that.
hmm
So we can launch into a little bit more Q&A, talk a little more about stuff that's been happening. But one thing that I was talking about earlier in the show is first impressions and sort of games we'd like to get back to at some point. I imagine, given the myriad responsibilities that you have You don't necessarily have a ton of time for deep dives into a ton of games. But are there games that you would like to revisit when you get the opportunity to do so?
I have so many games to play, Eric. I
Rattle some
mean,
off.
okay. So, well, my blog originally was intended to play my way through these 100 games
Hmm.
on this list.
Right.
And I've done a lot more than I've written about, or I've done a lot more than I've published that I've written about. But so I'd like to go back to some of those and revisit them. Yeah, I think Acquire is one that I want to go back to.
Hmm.
Um, I want to go back and play the new Pandemic Legacy.
Oh yeah.
That feels like going back to the original Pandemic Legacy, you know?
Right. Season 0, you mean? Yeah,
And I
I
want to
got
play
that.
Risk Legacy. I haven't dug into that yet. I've opened it. I haven't really
Hmm.
played it yet. Um, I was gifted the deluxe version of Puerto Rico for my birthday, and I really want to play that because I haven't played it since I got it. Uh, and I really liked. I've only played it once, and I played it with the deluxe version, and that was the first deluxe game that I had ever played, and I
Oh.
loved that it had metal coins, and so it just like completely, um,
Now I'm trying to think of
informed.
what the first deluxe game I ever played was, and I'm like, I think the first one that I ever really like, sorry, that I ever really like shelled out for might have been Near and Far.
Oh, yeah.
But I did get Sorcerer City almost like not entirely because of the metal coins, but a lot of because of the metal coins.
I have my Seven Wonders Duel game is completely like has everything metal in it and everything very fancy and I love it. And I got the broken token insert for it. I don't ever do that, but I just like I
I
love
did
the
it
game so
for One
much.
Night Ultimate Werewolf, if you believe it, just because we were playing like I think I've probably played 500 games of One Night Ultimate Werewolf. There would be
Yeah.
nights that we would just play 30 or 40 rounds of it,
Yeah.
and like at that point, yeah, it makes sense to have the full like box with it.
Yeah, I did that with yeah, Seven Wonders Duel. I was like I was playing it so much that it was just like, all right, let's just go for
Of
it.
course.
Um we played Monstrosity. And I want to play that all the time now. I ordered 5 copies of it after we played it because I'm giving it to all my little cousins.
Oh,
Every
okay.
family is going to get a copy for
I thought you
Christmas.
just really wanted a bunch of like extra marker boards, and I was like, oh, you can just get marker boards.
No, no, I really just every year for Christmas I pick one game that's kind of like, family party game kind of thing, and I give it to like each of the sets of cousins for the
Mhm.
holidays so that I can just teach it really easily. Like I feel confident about teaching it. It's pretty easy, and they have something they can pick up and just like use while they're hanging out all together. So that's the game of the year. For that's the family game of the year.
I will
So
occasionally gift board games to my family, but I think they are thoroughly sick of them and they never play them. So I'm just always
that
like,
might be true for me too, but I'm in denial.
yeah, I'm always like, I probably shouldn't waste my money. We've recently shifted the family to like a no gift for like Christmas sort of arrangement.
Yeah,
So that's been also fine.
yeah. Maybe I should pay attention, but I don't know. They seem to like it. Some of them like it more than others, probably. The issue is there's always like one person in each family who genuinely likes it and they encourage me and I don't need to
Right.
be encouraged. And then the rest of them are like, just stop buying us board
No, you're
games.
just over there being like positive feedback. Yeah,
Right.
no, I'm the same way. I do that all the time.
Yup.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, that's totally fair. So you did mention the 100 Games project. I was going to ask, you've done a fair bit of work through that. What are big things that you think you've learned from it, or what are major takeaways?
oh my God. I don't know. Like I think it just the reason I did it is because I felt like when I started working in I had never played a hobby board game until I worked in board games.
Mhm.
And so, I played Catan and I played Carcassonne and I started playing like some party games and then I felt like I would go to conventions and I wouldn't know I didn't feel like as informed as everyone else and like doing sales and board games, I was like, yes, but I mean, I was mostly doing mass market sales, so it wasn't such a big deal. But when I would go to
Right.
distribution shows, like people would be like, oh, well, this is like this game, but it's got this twist, and I just felt like an idiot not knowing what anyone was talking about. So I felt like this is a really good way to get a baseline of different types of games, and
Hmm.
it was a good project because did that. And
Right.
then I realized it took a lot of pressure off after I did like the first handful of them. I was like,
Hmm.
oh, this is actually not as complicated as I thought it was. Like there's trick taking games and there's this kind of, like I actually knew more than I thought I did. Um, but it did push me to try out some video games that I was really intimidated by, and I learned to play a couple of, collectible card games and things like that. So I think it just made me less intimidated than I had been before. If that,
Sorry, collectible card games always make me sad.
I mean, yeah, okay.
I
Some
grew up
people love
playing.
them so much,
Oh, I
like,
have no problem with them. It's mostly just that this is a like sad child Eric story. I grew up in a small town in West Virginia, and I was just like so powerfully into the Dragon Ball Z trading card game.
oh.
No judgment, just like I know I can say no judgment about a thing I was doing, and that's fine. Um, but so what would happen was nobody in town played it. It was just me.
Oh
Like I
no.
was the only
So
person
how
who
did
was
you
buying
play
it.
it? Did you play it?
So actually, I played a primitive remote version of it, where basically we would play with other people that I would find in online guilds over AOL Instant Messenger. And unfortunately, I had the heart of a champion and the deck building sense of a rock because I lost every game that I played horribly. Like basically, I would get right up to it. I'd be doing well. I had deck consistency. I was drawing the right stuff, and it would be like watching a bad episode of Yu-Gi-Oh. They would draw the perfect card they needed to shut me down and completely like torch me out of the game. This
Mm.
happened all the time, constantly, forever, and I was maybe like 8 to 12 at the time. And so about maybe like 10 years later, I was telling someone else this story, and I was like, yeah, it was just wild. Every single time they would draw the exact card that would, and I was like, oh, oh. So I spent most of my youth just getting hustled online by bullies, which is fine. It's just every time that I think about CCGs, I just remember how excited I was about the Dragon Ball Z trading card game and how like utterly devastated Kid Me
Yeah.
was, like how
Yeah.
terrible I was at it.
I just listened to people talk about magic for so long and got just, I don't know. Like I don't think there were a lot of people around me who played magic
Mhm.
when I was growing up, or at least not that I knew of. And yeah, like I wasn't really around it until I was in board games, and then people were just really, really into it, and I did not understand at all.
My parents were lovely people, and like for like my birthday or for Christmas, they would like get me a booster box. And that was just like what we did on Christmas morning. I would just like tear through 30 packs of these like trading cards and just be over the moon about it.
Yeah, I like it a lot more now because I've played stuff online, and that just seems a lot more accessible to me. I don't really want, if I were a kid, it might have been different, but right now, like I do not want piles and piles of cards that do not belong in like a specific box,
I
which is
definitely have all of them in the closet space back there. I like salvaged them from my home when my dad was like, "Should I get rid of all these trade?" And I was like, "No." I'm like now I'm kind of like maybe I should just buy myself a booster box for Christmas.
maybe you should.
Maybe I should. But I
I'll
will I
find
will
some.
I will eventually guilt someone into playing them with me again. It's just going to take a long time and a lot of social capital. Like,
You'll
ugh,
find
God.
you'll find your person. You live near San Francisco, so like
It's just such an embarrassing story because I'm just like, oh,
there's got to be so many people with that story though.
I just thought I was terrible
Maybe
at
not the
it.
hustle part, but like at least people trying to play online, and I
Man,
mean kids, right? Like I mean,
why
yeah,
would people be so mean? Anyways.
I don't know. Like it might have just maybe that was their time to shine. Like they were just like, living their best life, finally getting to win by lying. But people lie about dice, like people lie about all kinds of people cheat. I used to cheat in board games all the time when I was a kid. Because I
I
played like I mean I had like, I was playing like Mall Madness and
mm,
Trouble and Hungry
sure.
Hungry Hippo and
I learned how to cheat from or my I used to cheat in cards with my grandmother, and that was just like an expectation that we had that like if we were gonna play war, I would have like stacked the deck. And she like tolerated it, God love her, but like
yeah. I mean we did
yeah.
that all the time as kids.
I always had a really interesting one. So let me pitch a cheat to you. So one thing that I used to do a fair bit, and this was actually pretty recent, so I'd say probably within the last like 10-ish years or so, we'd be playing Avalon, or we'd be playing like One Night Ultimate Werewolf, and so you know the hidden role games. There's always roles that have higher complexity, and so like for Avalon, what I would do every so often, if we had a new player, I would when I was shuffling and dealing out the rolls, I would basically keep my index finger while shuffling on top of the Merlin card, so I always knew where the Merlin card was in the stack, and then I would just move it to the bottom by the time I finished shuffling, and I'd start dealing with the player on my right, so that the last card that gets dealt is Merlin and always gets dealt to me. I only did this for one reason, and it was to ensure that the new player at the table wouldn't get the most complicated roll.
Mm-hmm.
And I got into a very heated argument with someone about this once. They're like, "That's clearly cheating," and I was like, "Sort of. It's not like it doesn't actually affect your probability in any way, shape, or form. It only affects the objective observer probability of like if I have one person fixed." And he's like, "Well, now that I know that, I'm just going to assume that you're Merlin all the time." And I'm like, "Yes, of course. That's actually why I told you, is so that now in subsequent games that we play, you have no idea if this is the time that I decided to base steal myself Merlin or not. Isn't that fun for you?" And then he got all gaming is performance art.
That's terrible. I mean, I think it makes sense to set people up for success when they're learning a new game.
I'm very
think
much
it's generous, but
yeah. I'm not playing to win the game. I'm playing to get people who will keep playing games with me in the future, right? So I'm just like, if you lose the game, that's fine. But like,
people have to do that in every game that like in any game that you set them up for, you're gonna be like, I'll go first so that like you can see what I'm doing, or
right.
I'll like we'll play an open hand
Mm-hmm.
for this first round.
No, I think that
the
makes
same
perfect
thing.
sense.
Yeah, I'm with you.
No, it was definitely something that like I was intrigued by how irritated someone got about it, because I can understand where they're coming from. You are technically manipulating a game outcome that is supposed to be random. And I'm like, but it's not. It's a manipulated probability from your own perspective. And so from your own perspective, when I've dealt the cards, whatever card I have, I have. It just so happens that I've changed it so that I know in advance what card I have. Anyway, if you're playing Avalon with folks, I highly recommend it for the first time. Just don't tell people that you're doing it, because then
I never play Avalon. I don't that's
either.
not one that I play.
My hot take is I think it's kind of busted. Like, I think having a player who can see who the bad characters are kind of makes the game weird, and it requires a fix that I don't like. So they have to have the assassin at the end. And I have played a game of Avalon where I, as the assassin, did no participation whatsoever, ignored the game entirely, picked a character at random, got Merlin, and won the game.
Have you played
And I was like,
Are you playing that game?
huh?
Are you playing Among Us?
I think the thing is, I don't really like social deduction games if you can get into a situation where you have to have a direct argument with someone, just because I don't really get anything out of it. And I've played Among Us. I was lucky enough to go like, I think I went 4 for 4 in my first 4 rounds of Among Us, so I'm very much at the like, I don't think I ever need to play this game again energy.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of fun. I think it's got a lot of good stuff going for it. It's just that the like debate portions where you're like, I ended up in a situation where I had to have a direct conflict with another player. And so like I had like killed someone in the electrical room. I was leaving the room. They were coming in, and I was like, So I ran back to the body, self-reported, and accused them of doing the murder. Mm-hmm. And they were like, no, he did the murder, and no one could decide. So I got outvoted by 1 vote. And then I turned off the oxygen as a ghost, and we still won. That's not really here or there. But like, I just didn't enjoy that interaction at all.
Yeah, I can see that.
And so I'd much rather play, I mean, when it comes down to it, I'd just much rather play like team-based games or like Jackbox or something.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. The social deduction game thing, I like a lot of them. I'll play them, but they're not my favorite. They're not my go-to.
Yeah, the only ones that I've really enjoyed are like Insider or like One Night Ultimate Werewolf. And One Night Ultimate Werewolf, like, we were playing One Night Ultimate Alien, and that's the one that has like weird random app effects. Mm-hmm. And the thing was, it's odd because it's actually possible for the game to be too random, where enough random things happen all at once that they make it so that there's only one possible through line to justify all of those different random effects, and so it just solves the game. And I was like, huh, well, that's probably not the intended result of all of these combinations. Like, it's sort of like, it was basically the social deduction equivalent of a Rube Goldberg machine, where you'd like throw a baseball and it would like knock a brick off, activate a fan, just do all this stuff, and it'd be like, and Amber's the alien.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh.
There's a board game that I saw that actually was a Rube Goldberg machine, and I wonder.
Yes.
What? No, it's something newer than that. I remember seeing it at a trade show. I wish I would. I don't remember what it was called, but
as soon as you said it, I was like, I'm gonna say Mousetrap, and she's gonna get mad at me.
Yeah, well, that's just because I'm like flashbacks to setting that up and crashing it
never
about a million times. Yeah, it was a nightmare. Like, do you want to build a roller coaster at home that can't support anything?
Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking about a different game.
No.
Me not looking at any particular roller coaster themed games that came out and maybe didn't work quite so hot.
Oh, no, I did not pay any attention to those.
We don't need to talk about it. Anyways, so, machines.
Cool.
We love them.
So much.
So, moving on from that, before I say something I'm going to regret. So, when we talk about some of the personal work that you've done, you do talk a fair bit about how you prioritize things like aesthetic and design of different games. What are a few games that you think shine in those regards, and what do you think that they do particularly well?
I was thinking about this because you told me you were going to ask me this, and
I try to help you.
Well, and I mean, it's funny because I'm really, really picky about the way things look. It's really hard though to find games that are good and also look good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it depends on your personal aesthetic, but I can completely agree with you that, like, especially for certain games, like, it is hard to find very beautiful games that also play well.
Yeah. I feel like an asshole saying this, but I don't know that I can even think of a single one, which is terrible. You know what I do like is I do really like Wavelength.
Mm-hmm.
I think they did a really good job of making things look nice,
mm-hmm.
and
it's also got a particular aesthetic to it, though. Like, I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm like, this is a truly beautiful game by like some artsy standard. I'd be like, oh, I really like this game's aesthetic and how it like uses aesthetic to accomplish the thing it's going to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you, and I think that's kind of what I'm into. I wish I could really think of a game that I thought was absolutely gorgeous, but
I mean, I'm happy to throw some options up.
Yeah, give me some clues here.
So, like, my personal pick here is probably the Shipwreck Arcana. So I'm a big fan of like kind of spooky tarot stuff and like colors, and I thought it did both really well for like what it's trying to do, right? Which is like some weird like fate drawing thing.
Yeah. Fine. Here's the problem. A lot of this stuff is like painted, and a lot of the art style is just not something I'm particularly interested in. Like, I really like more modern graphics and like abstract stuff. And and there's a company called Helvetic that makes a lot of abstract games, and had this really like kind of like a match.
Is that the one that did like Bandita?
Yeah. And so I like a lot of their stuff. I like the way that the Oink stuff works.
I mean, I think Oink is a company that really has the aesthetic that they want down. Like bold color game boxes, nice size, like good art on the covers, and just very esoteric naming schemes.
Yeah.
We had like a running joke, me and Joe Sandow on Twitter. We would just like occasionally come up with things that we think could be the names of Oink games, like an umbrella in July, and just like that's probably like that seems reasonable.
I think A Fake Artist in New York is my favorite little box of theirs.
I like Nine Tiles Panic a lot, but that's because I really like that ghost design or like the alien design. And I just love the energy of like aliens have come to town and all they want are hamburgers, and the game just being like, this is functionally the world that you find yourself in, and you're like, okay.
Yeah, you taught me that game. I like that game.
That
You know
game.
what I really love Can't Stop.
Hmm.
That's one of my favorites. Yeah, that's
I think I
such
think I
a
tend to
good game.
prioritize color a lot when I'm thinking about like games that I like, and I really like games that have either color schemes that I haven't seen before. So like Castles of Tuscany, right, has that like really emerald green box. The actual like art is it's Euro-y, but I really like the color of the box a lot.
Yeah.
If that's like a weird thing.
No, I am with you, but I just like look at that lion. It's a that's it's not gonna. I, I don't like it, but
So
I'm
if
sure
to
it's like
sum
the
up, you could say it's your favorite art style, but you'd be lying.
game. I'm so glad that came. Thank you.
I was
Appreciate
like, as soon as you started with it, I was like, oh, I've got it.
that.
Um,
Um, what else? I don't know. Like
I like parks a lot, but I'm also very much into the like 59 parks like aesthetic of that project, and I really love the way that they like tried to like align with that aesthetic for their game as well. I just think it turned out really great for them. But I also feel like that's again a place where it's like, do you like the particular art style that they're going for this? If so, yes. If not, then no.
Right. I mean, and I like I mean, one of my life goals, I'm into lists. Like I
Hmm.
my blog is all about like working through a list. My one of my life goals is going to every single national park. I'm like I should be the target audience for all of that
Right.
stuff.
I'm just
And
gonna call you an art grump and just be like,
I
yeah.
am an art grump, yeah. I mean, it's just like I feel bad because people talk to me about it sometimes, and I'm just like, I'm not gonna like anything that you did. You know what I do like? I like Santa Monica. That's a
Oh,
pretty one. I'm just like scrolling through my Instagram to see what
mhm.
I've played that I do
Santa
like.
Monica's pretty. Yeah.
Yeah, I like Santa Monica. That was nice.
Mhm.
I
I
I
I think to be fair, my aesthetic also works very well with my photography style because I tend to do like dark and saturated, and so that means that a lot of these games that I point to, like things like Parks or things like Shipwreck Arcana or even things like Santorini, benefit from that like particular view, focusing a lot more on the color.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I really like well, I mean, this is why I like Crokinole so much is because it's just wood and it's so pretty and neutral. Shobu, I liked
Oh,
that
Shobu.
photographed really nicely.
Yeah. I had a I
Um,
had a I had a pain trying to photograph it just because I struggle with games that have very light and very dark pieces because it just doesn't work quite super
yeah,
well with my personal photography style. I've made some edits. I think I could do it better now.
I like
Um,
I like the Target version of the game
oh
that
yeah.
Quanchai did,
Hmm.
and I would say I would say
I like Quanchai a lot in general though. We were just I think he's doing a collaboration with Catan for Hot Topic, and he had like
what
right? That was like I was like, this is a lot of information in one tweet.
even
But
happening in the world.
so he had like it's a really nice shirt, and I thought that the tweet was saying that he was
Oh,
doing
it's for a
a
shirt. It's not
yeah,
for a
for a
game.
shirt. No, I thought the tweet was saying though that he was doing a like new art version of Catan, and I was like,
I
well,
mean, please,
I
somebody
was like,
needs to like,
I'd buy that.
yeah, I would for sure buy that. I would
Well,
love
that's
that.
I was kind of I was thinking about it, and I really would kind of like a like great artists series of like how BGG did those
The
posters for
posters,
different
yeah.
games. I would actually really like to see a similar thing done for like maybe 10 classic board games where they just get
Oh my
like
God. Yeah, well, I mean, restoration would be perfect for this, right? Like I just don't it's like how do you get the rights and how do you just there's so many Euro games that I would
what's
love
or
to
it's
just
like
see modernized and yeah.
what's like and this one confuses me, so I don't know anything about it, but I think the international version of the Quest for El Dorado has like Vincent Dutrait art,
Hmm.
and it looks really nice. It's like a super pretty game. But like, you've got like Jackie Davis, you've got like Beth Sobel. There's a lot of different really talented art folks who could like take a bunch of older or like more classic games and reimagine them in ways that I think would be really interesting. And that's the kind of thing that I'd be like, oh, I would love to own like I'd love to own any game that I'll be perfectly frank here. I'd love to own basically any game that Quanchai has done art for. But like even the Fireball Island posters, right, where they had a bunch of different artists do it. Like I would be interested in the like Kyle Theron like
Hmm.
re-art of Pandemic. I'd be like, there's nothing wrong with the existing Pandemic art. I'm just kind of like, oh, I would like some art piece sort of looking game.
I would like to be allowed to art direct any Phil Walker Harding game. That's like, if I could do that, I would be very happy. The thing is that I don't, you're naming a lot of artists who work and do board game illustration, and
Sure.
that's great. But the reality is, I get frustrated that we
Art
have this.
Grump.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I like all of the people that you've named. At the same time, like, can't we use someone else? Like, I want to, I want things to be, the thing, it's got to be difficult to be working in board games as an illustrator if you're primarily working in board games, and I guess you get known and then everybody wants to work with you, and like that's great. But also there's a lot of really amazing designers that aren't in the board game space that I think would be cool.
Right. Have you seen
So
like Gods or is it God, I'm gonna embarrass myself. Have you seen Godforge?
mm-mm.
Godforge was an Atlas Games title from a little while back that basically it was imagine a wizard fighting game, but all filtered through a like electric skateboard aesthetic.
Okay.
It's very particular, but it was definitely like a, oh, this is a really cool thing that I had not previously seen before.
Okay. Yeah, I'm
Yep.
looking at it now. I see. Yeah, I'm with you.
It's definitely like a, oh, unexpected.
Yeah. It's the other thing that happens sometimes is that the game itself looks great and then the box doesn't, or the other way around. And I hate when that happens. Like I hate getting
Yeah,
sold in a
I
box and
will
then
I will definitely say that might be one of my big gripes with I was gonna whisper don't tell anyone. I remember we're on a literally recorded call. But
we're
I
intentionally recording this for
right, yeah,
people to watch.
yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's kind of my problem with Sorcerer City, honestly, is that like I really like the box a lot and the tiles are fine. They do what they need to do. But I was like for a tile laying game, I was kind of hoping it would look a little bit more like the box art.
Yeah.
And the game itself, I actually really enjoy. Like I've had a blast playing it. It's exactly up my alley. It's like real time deck building, tile laying sort of thing.
Hmm.
Very, very big up my alley. But I still every so often I'm just like, I just kind of wish the tiles looked more like the box art.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, which is always weird when that happens because like that's largely I think most games are pretty consistent with their box art, right? You're not seeing like you know this like beautiful sweeping landscape box and then inside the box there's like a blue tile and a red tile and you're like that's the whole game.
You know what I'd really love to redo is Quacks of Quedlinburg and Hadara. Like both
Hmm.
of those games I really want redone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
How would you
Yeah.
redo Quacks? Like I will say that I don't like the aesthetic of Quacks isn't personally something that I'm like super jazzed by. I'm just kind of like, oh, I get it.
It's like it feels like it's from, a like Hans Christian Andersen sort of like,
Yeah, it doesn't
like
really do
I don't
anything for me.
that's not exciting to me and like it just doesn't make me it doesn't I don't know. It just doesn't I like abstract stuff and I like
Mhm.
stuff that's more modern looking and it just isn't my thing. But I
Whatever.
love the game. It's just so fun and so I always want it to be. There's another one that I think that you recommended to me. I'm forgetting what it's called, but I wanted to do it with like foil and moon shapes. It's like the time one. You're around a circle and you're moving around time. What is it called?
Nova Luna? Oh yeah, Nova
Yeah.
Luna.
Yeah, I
Sorry,
really
I
want
don't
to
know
do
why I said Nova Luna and then realized that was the correct answer, but
that.
I was like, and like it's like I heard myself and I was like, that man makes some good points. Uh,
Yeah, I really wanted to redo that one.
what are your thoughts on like the villainous, like just the pieces in villainous? Because I think about that as like a like filtering of like a essentially like a very well known representation being filtered through an entirely different aesthetic.
I don't hate it. I mean, the thing is like mass market stuff, I think like I always want stuff to be kind of like weird art stuff and I like realize that that does not work for mass market.
Sure.
Um
I would say
I
that that's probably about as weird as mass market can get is those pieces because you're just like, oh,
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, liked the look of it all. Yeah. I had no complaints about that, which is something because I have complaints about everything.
Art Grump approved.
Yeah. hmm
Oh man, that's the dream. Just finally us getting through and
I'm
being
like,
like, we
yeah, I'm not going to complain about that one. Yeah,
hey,
okay.
we made it through with the American Tabletop Awards logo. I know that was a fraught period, but we ended up in a spot that I think everyone really liked.
I did great. It was great.
Yeah. Let me think here. So when we talk a little bit about this, we talked about the idea of like timeless designs or like solid aesthetics. What are things that you think games can do to get the sticker that says Art Grump approved, or to like have a design that doesn't feel outdated in a few years?
Mm. I mean, I said this before, but like a lot of these games have like a painted sort of style or a like I mean that stuff like those trends just change. And
Yeah.
so I think even the things that I'm saying like, oh, I want something that looks more modern and like a little bit more clean and sort of graphic design style, like digitally illustrated instead of looking like it was hand drawn. Like I really loved the Vincent Dutrait art for um, I think it was it the, I think that he redid the art for the Jaipur app, and now it's in the new Jaipur
Oh
game,
yeah.
right? Yeah,
They
because
did
I
make a
was
new.
working on the app, and he had like redone all the art, so we got to unveil it when we put the app out. Um, but like, I didn't really feel like that game needed an update. I thought it was already really beautiful looking, and but I mean, they freshened that up just by like it's changing line weight, right? And like just updating colors. And I think sometimes that's a little bit easier than people think it is. But like for me, Quacks, that looked like it was like 20 years old, and you know it or
Yeah.
older. It just looked
It's
really
just
it looked like old school Catan or Carcassonne. Like
right.
a lot of
It's
the German
interesting.
games are old fashioned, you know?
Right, I was about to say that that is interesting in one sense because if you produce a game with old art, it kind of it has that like, you know, when UPS like started numbering their planes at like what 50 or something, it gives you sort of the like this game's been around forever. You just hadn't heard of it before
Right.
sort of energy to it, but I do agree with you. It does look pretty dated.
I think it's that I like Euro games so much, but I'm not really into like German style of art and even the French styles of like sometimes I really like French the look of French games because they really pull it off as like a package where
Mhm.
it's like it's really consistent between like the box and the cards and
Right, like I
um
liked Catch the Moon a fair bit because Catch the Moon I
yeah
think has like a really nice end-to-end aesthetic and also the ladders are really cute. Like
yeah they did a nice job. Well, also was it a the netters that did
yeah,
the painted
she
yeah
painted
that
all.
just
Yeah.
that made me in love with all of it. I never actually I bought the markers to do that and then someone told me how much work it was, and I was like,
Yeah,
mm.
so I specifically didn't buy the markers because I was like, that's a great idea. And I know if I buy the markers, I am not going to do it. I am just going to feel bad about it, though.
Yeah, I still feel a little bit bad about it. The thing is, the markers are really hard to use. Paint markers, like you have to shake them forever and
Yeah.
press really hard. It's like it's not comfortable.
Oh,
You need artist hands. I do not have artist hands.
no, I don't have artist hands either.
But yeah, I think you're right. Like a lot of the that European stuff that I'm talking about, they do kind of make it look like it's been around for a long time and like it
Mhm,
should be classic, but it just feels so dated to me.
mhm.
And it makes me a little bit frustrated when I'm playing with it because it just doesn't feel light or fun or playful. And I think I just want things to feel more playful.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes they're just so like big into being immersive, and I don't really care about that. I care more about it just being beautiful.
Yeah, that's fair. I think Jordan Draper did some nice work with like the Tokyo series, trying to make
Oh
them
yeah,
like
yeah.
feel a little bit like modern, which I appreciated. I was
Um,
mostly into it because I got to like have a tiny like washer dryer or like a tiny vending machine and be like,
yeah. Well,
but you know me,
yeah,
I'm
cute
really into
stuff.
weird components.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's yeah. I liked the aesthetic of everything he was doing, but like that almost went too far in some ways because it was like I couldn't tell the difference between each of the games that I had.
Hmm.
You know, like the
That's because you
boxes
can
all.
combine them all for a
Yeah.
17-hour experience.
There's there's another art style that I like. Like Pandasaurus does a lot of stuff that I like.
Hmm. I like
And
Sonora a fair bit. Again,
yeah,
though, that's the color scheme thing that I really like.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
purples, blues, dark greens. I'm here
Yeah.
for all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Those look good. Um, I think there's, I'm forgetting the guy's name. I was just looking at his artwork the other day. Nick Nazaro or Navarro,
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
Uh, Sorry, I don't know his name, but yeah, I've liked a lot of the artwork that he's put out there. It just looks different to me, and I felt the same way about Quanchai stuff, especially when it first came out. And like, I think I talked about the Target edition of the game, and I that was a really good example to me of like just that it felt textured. To make paper like that feel so textured was just really impressive.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Okay, let's see here. So you've done a lot of work at a lot of different places. So how do you think your roles have changed as you've spent more time in the industry?
Um, I'm doing less admin work now than I ever did before. I started out in the industry mostly doing like, you know, operational stuff and um, I had a background in marketing and book publishing and a little bit of branding, and I was interested in that when I started in the industry.
Mhm.
Um, I think I get to do I'm not really an art director, but I've been allowed to do art direction. I think I'm allowed to do even less of that now, but I get to be bossy about marketing assets. So
Mhm.
I have a little bit like, I think I have more control over budgets and projects now, but a lot of what I'm doing is more strategy than like, um, I don't know, like than just, a specific project that I'm working on. I'm trying to make that one project good.
Mhm.
I'm really lucky now because I'm at a company that's doing well and growing and they care a lot about the community. So I'm getting to do a lot of work where I get to kind of pick people that I think are doing good work or representing the industry well or helping the community grow in a nice way and support their work, which is really exciting.
Mhm.
Um, so I do a lot more of that. I'm doing less like sales, I guess. I did sales for a while, especially for like mass market and book channel, and I was going to a lot of like distribution shows. And now that I'm not doing physical product anymore, that's really changed because like when I worked for Asmodee Digital, I was going and doing stuff with like Google and with the App Store and with
Mhm.
Nintendo and Oculus and stuff. And that was such a change because before, like the big people that you talk to were like Amazon or Target or
Mhm.
Walmart. So that was really interesting and like a huge pivot from, waiting for games to show up after you send them to the printer,
Right.
and hoping they get there in time to get on a truck to get to Target or get to a distributor. Um, so yeah, I mean that's probably the biggest change is just going from cardboard to digital.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a different space, and like marketing is really different because you actually know who your customers are,
Mhm.
and so you get to talk to the players a little more directly instead of doing like B2B sales, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think especially industry wide, at least in the board game industry, a lot of people are feeling the like cardboard to digital shift strain as more and more things are starting to move online, especially in the last like year or two.
Yeah, well, COVID has messed all of that up.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's
But
just been there's a bunch of games that like I think maybe at the beginning there were a lot of Kickstarter campaigns that were like, so nothing's getting manufactured for a hot minute. And naturally, Kickstarter backers are the epitome of class, grace, and sophistication. So when presented with a delay caused by a worldwide event outside of their control, they all collectively said, "Oh no, we totally understand. We just appreciate that you're doing your best."
yeah,
Yep.
that's been my experience with
Yeah, that's every Kickstarter, every person who's put something on Kickstarter that I've seen has said that like comments are just bastions of just moderation, contentment.
yeah, you know what? I've never run a Kickstarter, so I've never had to deal with that. Like
I'm never
I
gonna, so I don't want to deal with
yeah,
it.
like yeah, yeah, it sounds difficult. It sounds like it's really a specific sort of expertise, right? Like you have to really know how to do it, which is yeah, I don't. And God bless the people. Like it sounds like it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Um, Although we do have forums at Roll20, so I do like, get feedback there, which is
Oh, fun.
yeah.
Love that.
I mean, some of it's really nice. It's kind of interesting to see like how many it's different like the people you talk to on social media are really different than the people who you talk to on forums and
Sure.
they're different like different commitment to the game or to the platform or whatever.
Right.
So
I think
it's
even BGG experiences that at some high level, right? Like the people who are on Twitter talking about BGG are very different than I think in a lot of cases the people who are very highly embedded in the BGG forums.
I haven't posted on BGG anything in a very, very long time, but I love BGG con. Like I'm wearing my BGG jersey because it's glittery and this
And
is
I think technically we are filming this during
during
the online
BGG.
BGG
Yeah.
con.
Yeah, and BGG is my favorite con, and is that true?
I'm
I think it is
torn.
true.
I like almost every con that I go to, and I am exactly the person that thrives at Gen Con because I am that person who someone is like, hey, do you want to not sleep for 4 days and be constantly socially overwhelmed? And I'm like, kind of, actually. Sounds cool.
It's
Like, do you want
just
to just drink orange juice that you got out of the fridge to try and stave off whatever nasty thing you're going to catch at the convention? And I'm like, yes.
that's terrible.
I actually, so
Terrible.
actually last year I power gamed Gen Con, so I brought a box of Costco muffins that I had bought in Mountain View, so I could at least have like a good, like solid
You and
breakfast
I had
every day.
breakfast, I think, twice while I was at Gen Con.
Oh
So
yeah,
like
what was I
you were
eating?
not eating
Muffins.
those muffins.
One, the muffins are delicious. Let's get that clear. Uh, yeah, no, okay, we did. Yeah, okay. I think I must have had them for lunch. There were definitely some days that was my lunch because I had too many meetings scheduled.
That sounds right. Yeah.
I've got healthy habits.
Gen Con is, I just feel like I have to work too much at Gen Con. BGD Con has always felt like the place where I actually get to play games and hang
Yeah,
out with
BG Con is
friends.
definitely my like hangout con. I did really enjoy PAX Unplugged though.
Yeah, I had fun at PAX Unplugged.
It's just so consistently run. Like I know where I'm going, there's a media room, everything's done in advance, I've got passes for things, and it's just like smooth.
I hear ya. Yeah, I'm more of like a, I don't know. To me the BGG library is just so easily and
Oh yeah.
accessible, and like
The BGG
also I can stand
library
and
is
play
like
Crokinole for 100 hours and no one's
sure.
gonna bother me.
Right,
And
that's me in Seoulin when it's available.
yeah.
Or
Also, I
like
like that you can just pop into the hot games room and it just seems like there's carpet. The lack of carpet and like the cement floors at
mhm.
PAX Unplugged. It's just I can't.
Even
That
Gen Con, yeah, they feel kind of they don't feel as approachable as BG Con feels like you're going to play a game in someone's house, but it's a very big house and a bunch of people you don't know were invited, but that's probably okay because you don't have to talk to them. Whereas Gen Con, it's very much just like, welcome to Gen Con. Like it's a convention. This is all happening. Carpeting does make it everything feel a little bit cozier.
yeah, like I was gonna. I mean, this might be a terrible thing to say, but I'll just keep going. Like you were talking about, at Gen Con, you're gonna get sick,
Yeah,
and I feel
which
the
is
same way
terrible.
about PAX Unplugged. Like you're gonna get sick. There are too many people, and then like
Yeah, I didn't get sick at PAX Unplugged though.
but it
I
just
like
feels dirty. It just like there's nothing to catch the dust. Where like I feel like with all the carpeting at BGG Con, like if I'm gonna get sick at BGG Con, it's because I played with someone who was sick. It's not because I just like walked down a hallway that was disgusting.
Yeah, see, I'm having like a flashback to the BGG con where I was up until 5 o'clock in the morning playing Custom Heroes with Tony Miller and a few other people, and then I think I taught a group Mystery of the Temples, the Emperor S4 game in Deepwater, and I all I remember is saying, "Okay, does everyone have the rules down?" They're like, "Yeah, no, we're cool to play," and I was like, "Great," and then my head just hit the table and I fell asleep. And so I'm like, if I got sick at BGG cons because I was doing stuff like that, like
Oh, well,
wildly unwise sleeping decisions.
I'm too old for that.
I'm also too old for that. like, like I'm just like, yeah, no, that kills people.
I'm like, I don't have a baby with me. I can just sleep. It's gonna be so nice.
Yeah,
It's a different vibe.
I used to be very much like yeah, we'll stay up till 5 o'clock in the morning, and now I'm like, yeah, we'll stay up until midnight. Because getting a consistent sleep is more important than any board game I could play. Now,
hmm
my BGG Con goal was always to find and play one game that I hate, because I review a lot of games, right? And I like most of the games I review because I like, selection bias is a thing. You choose to review certain games, you're interested in certain titles, et cetera, et
hmm
cetera. And so every so often you start worrying, like, wait, do I just only like games? Then you find something in BGG, you play it, and you're like, other people like this game, but I hate it. What I actually do is I would play with do you remember me Aaron Vanderbeek? He's
I
the
don't,
designer of Castell from Renegade.
I don't know.
He
I'm
and I
terrible
have
with names.
he and I have zero overlap on games we enjoy.
Hmm.
We played several games together that I enjoyed, he hated, or that he enjoyed, I hated, and there was no there was so much daylight between our preferences. It was wild to me. That
Yeah.
helped me a lot. I was like, wowie, I did not like this game at all.
There's so few games that I feel that way about. I mean, I'm not really into war games, I guess.
Mhm.
That would be something that I don't like.
I think I don't like games that there are definitely some games that I'll play and I'll be like, there's a quote from The Good Place where I think Michael is talking about karaoke and he's like, some time passed and then it was over. And I think it might have been it might have been Martinique from maybe Z-Man. I think I
Hmm.
played it maybe 5 years ago. And I remember sitting down, we played the whole game. I looked at the person I was playing with and I was like, that was a game. He's like, indeed it was. We put it away and we never spoke about it again.
So I'm I'm not just an art grump. Like I get really frustrated if I feel like people didn't produce games well. I think that's part of it. Like that's one of the reasons I think Wavelength is like was like a go-to reference is because it looks like somebody took care of it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like someone cared enough to like make a really nice insert and make sure it felt good when like you click the little thing around. You know, like
Sorry,
all of
you
those
said
like
insert. My brain thought Barren Park and my entire body tensed up briefly. Like I was just I just got very angry. I didn't even realize that I had that reflex. But you're like,
yeah.
yeah, good insert. My brain's like Barren Park. And I'm like, why was it a Y shape?
It didn't make any sense at all. It really
Well,
didn't.
taking notes from a therapist.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh,
It's
bad inserts are a surefire way to irritate me for a game. I'm like, oh, please. We have an entire cottage industry devoted to making good inserts for games.
yeah, I think it just feels like people really cared about it and so I'm like, oh, they probably play tested this. They probably like really like, gave a shit. Like they probably wanted this to be a good experience for people. And like, oh, we were talking about abandoned all artichokes, and you
Oh
open
yeah.
abandoned all artichokes, and it's like the cute little artichoke sticker that I can't remember what it says, but it's adorable. And then like there's like it looks like a little recycled insert, like the cardboard insert that's in there, and it just feels like organic produce. Like the whole thing just feels so good, and it's
I
shaped like
reorganized my board game shelves so that I could have it standing up where it
yeah,
is. And I was like, yeah, it's very cute. I
it.
don't love tins for games.
I don't either. I don't want to carry that around at all, and
No. But it
yeah,
fits in the quiver, so
yeah. Yeah, it's fine, but I love it,
oh
and
yeah.
that one made me really happy. It just felt like there was so much care taken in making that game.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it feels good. I feel that way about a lot of the Haba Kids games too.
Hmm.
Like James and I are starting to play. My kiddo James is like 2. He's almost 3, and so he's like starting to understand that he's allowed to open some of these board game boxes. And like there's a bunch of the Haba ones generally are like really high quality painted wooden
Hmm.
stuff. Like there's the Hey Fishy Fishy one or something like that. And then there's My Little Orchard. Like he hasn't even played that yet, but it was supposed to be a Christmas present, but he found it in my car.
Oh,
And
I
my
was
sister
like, it's
opened it
okay.
for him.
I don't think he's gonna watch this.
My sister opened it for him and let him play with it at my nephew's baseball game. And like he had those little like the little wooden apples and pears and stuff, and he had them like rolling in gravel and dirt, and like I was like, man, he's ruining these pieces, and I picked them up and like wiped them off, and they just looked perfectly new. It
Okay.
was crazy, and that made me so happy. It just
I
felt
will
like
occasionally complain just because I wish more of the Haba games had inserts or bags. But this is just my ongoing gripe about I'll open a box. Like I opened Castles of Tuscany and I was like, I guess technically it's more of a back pivot, but that's okay. Um, I was like, it's an empty box with a bunch of bags. And I remember feeling, I'm so grateful that there are bags. And then I was like, bare minimum.
I guess the inserts are expensive to make.
They are. I mean, like they can't all like I think Parks and like a few of the I'm trying to remember which of the other titles. Maybe Red Raven had a couple, but the game trays inserts are I think becoming a like fairly de facto standard for a lot of Kickstarter games. You
Yeah.
don't see them pop up as much in the retail ones because they're perfectly fine like vacuum molded inserts that you can make for your games, right? You just kind of put stuff, the coins go in the coin tray. That's fine. They don't all need to be like Fog of Love where they have like little like nice plastic boxes with like lids for everything.
We're so grumpy.
Oh, we're yeah. So
We're
you
the
are
grumpiest.
production grump. I am bags and insert grump. Like I think that this is a perfectly reasonable hill for me to die on. I just want games to be easier to set up, and I don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
But every so often, I will just open up a box, and I'll be like, I know who made this terrible, and it was me. So I'm gonna blame the publisher for not putting in a better insert, rather than coming to terms with the fact that I just store my games vertically, and that causes me lifestyle problems.
Oh, yeah. I just switched to horizontal storage. It's a
It has its
lifestyle
merits.
change.
I've lately done whatever fits, so I've done like horizontal or vertical as needed, but vertical is easier for certain shelf styles because you can just pop the game out. Like,
This is like fascinating for all of the viewers out
oh
there.
yeah, there's definitely a bit that people are going to be watching and be like, is he running out of Steam? And the answer is no, I'm not running out of Steam. I just occasionally have very boring thoughts on very boring topics. All right, well let's move on before we get too into the weeds with inserts and shelf
With all
storage.
the things we hate.
To be fair, I feel like board gamers will be more interested in conversations about inserts and shelf storage. Comma, I feel like we've really like run that through its natural
Yeah,
course.
yeah. I think we've done this.
Okay, let's talk about a topic that's near and dear to both of our hearts then. So we have been seeing an uptick in online conventions. I'd say mixed results.
Oh, I mean, yeah. Okay. Why do you tell me about the results that you've seen? Because I have a
Um,
really different perspective.
I think that from so some things that I'm seeing are that for me as a written content creator, I say on the video that I'm creating and producing, it's a little bit. I think there's a slight frustration where it feels like a lot of conventions, especially online conventions, tend to prioritize video content to like the detriment of like they'll be like, yeah, we're gonna put this stuff on our main stage for our live stream, and I feel like there are ways in which written and audio content could also be integrated, and we're just not seeing that integration happen, and so it's kind of leaving a I'm inclined to say smaller but still relevant group of content creators a little bit out in the cold. This is a personal issue, so let's ignore the personal issue for a second. Um, I think that there's the challenge is that the value add seems to be challenging for a lot of folks. So, for instance, like I think BGG Con is this weekend, and if you pay $10 for the pass, you get a Tabletopia premium pass for all of BGG Con. I
I
think
didn't
it's
even know that. I don't, I mean,
well, the
I'm
thing is,
here wearing a BGG jersey and I didn't know that.
I
Like,
think
I love BGG
people don't
Con, but
necessarily know what the advantage of going to a virtual convention is. Is it going to be a thing where they just show you ad reels for games that are coming out? Are you going to get to try games that are this is probably the worst option. Are you going to get to try games that are exclusively online for the duration of the convention, which I think is frankly a bad idea for a number of reasons? Is it just that you're going to be put into games with a bunch of random people that you don't know, which is, I think, slightly worse than the previous idea, but just because I'm terrified of randos? Or is it like, I think the $25 tier of the BGG Con is you get everything in the $10 tier, which is a Tabletopia Pass, and you get a $15 coupon for the BGG store.
Mhm.
So it's just a $10 ticket with 15 more dollars that you spend for a $15 coupon to the promo store. And I'm sort of confused by what the value add is there. And I feel like a lot of folks aren't necessarily seeing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was Jeff Tidball who is with Atlas. He's a game designer. Wrote something that was, about like these online conventions. The thing that's not working is that when you're at a regular convention, you're removed from your daily life, right? Like you're completely immersed. Like you get to stay up at 5 in the morning until you pass out on a table trying to teach a game.
I
And
succeeded in teaching the game and then passed out just for the credit here. Everyone enjoyed the game.
well, and I mean, like you and I met because of conventions, and like
Right.
we had no intention of hanging out. I definitely did not intend to hang out with you, but then like ended up hanging out with you for like a whole day playing games, and that was, so I think there's a lot of like spontaneous games that happen. And yeah, so that's what I like about conventions is like I don't know what I'm going to do. I never plan I
Right.
plan some
It's the
meetings so that
commitment
I
to
get
being
paid to go.
outside of your own. Like
Yeah.
it's that very functionally I can commit myself to a whole day of meetings and then get dinner with my friends and play a game afterwards. Whereas now, if I'm committing myself to a whole day of meetings, it's because BGG Con started on my busiest meeting day of my actual job in real life, and I have to have a bunch of discussions about that while maybe also trying to keep track of board game stuff. It tries to blend rather
Yeah.
than keep them
Yeah.
like demarcated really well.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's not easy. And so I think that that's the real issue. But then when it comes to, like what I never sign up for like a scheduled demo or group play of any. I've never done an event at a convention, I don't think.
I think I've done
I've
like maybe two or three tops, but I hear you, yeah.
like I've showed up to play Werewolf because that's how I learned how to play Werewolf. And but yeah, I never intended to do anything like that. And so it's been, but I'm more inclined to do that, I think, for online conventions. Like I'm more inclined to like set a time and actually go to something if I'm doing an online convention.
Right.
Um, but working at Roll20Con or at Roll20, we have like online conventions that we're hosting constantly. We've been doing this since the beginning of COVID, when I think Gary Con was one of the first ones to go online,
Hmm.
and so especially for RPGs, when people are doing demos, they're like, fine, we'll just set up the game online.
Right.
And we'll run it there. And so we started seeing like crazy traffic from some of these online conventions. Like I think the weekend of Gen Con, we had, I don't know, close to 100,000 people
Hmm.
on Roll20. And it was like, oh, this is more people than are normally in Indianapolis that are online right now. And we
Right.
did Roll20Con, which we've been doing online every year for like 5 years now.
Right.
And there were like over 100,000 people on that weekend. And so that's sort of interesting because I think it's kind of an excuse to remind you that you do want to play games and like, maybe connect with people that like not necessarily with randoms, but like there's opportunity for that because some publishers are running demos or whatever. It's a chance to try something new, but it might just remind you to play
Hmm.
and connect with people that you already would have, who you might not have. They're not the same people you would have seen at a convention because some of them don't go, but I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a whole weird thing, and I have no interest in like watching people I don't know play online. I know a lot of people like to watch, especially with RPGs, people like live plays, but that's just not my thing.
Yeah. One of my old housemates is really into live plays, and I didn't know this about her until pretty recently. She was just like telling me about some live play RPGs she's watching, and I was like, oh, I know one of those people because board game Twitter and RPG Twitter are like close enough together that we exist in the same like liminal space.
Yeah, I mean, we have a bunch that we sponsor for through work that are people playing, they happen to be using Roll20, and so we like sponsor their games. And some of them I've watched them because we support them at work, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty fun. Actually, this is like I did like this is actually cute.
Mhm.
But yeah, I wasn't watching them before I worked at Roll20, and I don't know, it's just like I wouldn't have watched people play games if I went to Gen Con, so I don't know why I would do that at home, but
Yeah.
I'm mostly interested in seeing like my friends who are working booths or who are like
Right.
going and having meetings. What games were they excited about? That's like the thing that I'm happy to find out. And then
Right.
just yeah, getting to spend time with people.
Yeah, no. I think the thing I'm wondering about also is that um so there are some advantages to online conventions, right? Like we're talking a bit about like getting exposure to new titles, making like online, even just making more games available on platforms like Tabletopia, so people can try games before they buy them. And also, for a lot of folks, just the reality is that attending a convention is not something that they can do, either because they, would prefer not to. They have some, thing that makes conventions very difficult for them, or just like travel is non-feasible,
Or
especially
kids
now.
or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. So I guess my thought process is here, like, what lessons do you think that we can take from these sort of online board game conventions to try and make the like subsequent years convention scene more inclusive? I have in my notes here the 2021 convention scene, but 2021 is going to be online as well.
Yeah.
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 Fun bummer, but like, who's who's like who's gonna go to Gen Con?
I mean, yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see.
I have hope. Um,
I mean, yep.
so I mean, what I hope happens is that people keep running demos online, because I think that's like you and I were talking about for American Tabletop Awards. It'll be really nice for all of us to like. There are games that you really want everybody to play, and it's like, oh, I feel really strongly about this one. Like, this is a nice way for you to um, I don't know, you'd have access to it, and like
Mhm.
it's just become so much more normalized to play online that like it's set up and we can just teach it to you real quick, and like it'll
Right.
take a couple hours of your time instead of a lot of times. I know for when I've been on awards panels, I've had to like hunt down copies of games. Like
Mhm.
I remember I was doing the Origins Awards one year, and I had to like I drove all over the Bay Area to like four different stores to try and find like the 10 games that I needed, and spent a lot of money doing that. And
Right.
just because a lot of stuff was out of stock.
Mhm.
And yeah, so
Does
that
make you
becomes.
kind of wonder if like if you'll start seeing publishers actually replace their physical convention demo presence with like more tables where you can actually just try the game out on like Tabletop Simulator or Tabletopia, just because at that point, right, if you don't have one of these, like if you have just like a couple seats around a computer screen, it takes up less horizontal like space than having a like full size table might for the same
Oh, you
game.
mean like in person using
Hmm.
you? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, but they're trying to sell physical games, and like so much
Oh,
of
they're
that is
definitely
like
trying
the.
to sell physical games, but then they don't have to do any of the setup. They don't have to reset. They can show someone most of what the game does, and if Tabletopia or Tabletop Simulator are normalized enough, then people might have some sense of how to like. Then the staff just kind of needs to be able to like teach a couple things about Tabletopia and walk through the game. I'm mostly just thinking about it in terms of like you could imagine some of the bigger convention spaces could like have more tables of people demoing if they had that sort of setup going
I
for them.
can't imagine that I would demo that way
I
in
probably
person.
wouldn't either. I'm more just like it's an interesting thought because you could also do something like, oh, we want to pivot so we have, 10 tables of Suro and 10 tables of Suro Phoenix Rising, but tomorrow we want to go 10 tables of Suro Phoenix Rising and 10 tables of, I don't know, Dicey Peaks. I
Yeah,
think I hope that's another Calliope game. Otherwise, my metaphor is really falling apart here. But you could just literally hit a
yeah, you can
button and
switch it
switch
up.
all of them.
Yeah, yeah.
It's interesting, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's like
But if you're talking about how do we keep it, like how do we keep the accessibility there? I mean, I think it's hoping that people realize that yeah, you can reach these some percentage of these 60,000 people who have come into Indianapolis for Gen Con, but also you could run as many demos as you wanted online, following the show. So you could be, creating some sort of system where you have like people who are being paid to demo games on whatever service for you, whatever platform for you. I don't know. That would be nice. I would
yeah.
I I would appreciate that. And I mean, I know that there are RPG people who are doing that. The people from Ninth Level Games are having basically paid demos where they have professional GMs who are running a game for you, and they do it at some, like, say they charge you $10 to do this, and then if you decide you want to buy the game, then your $10 that you paid for this demo, this, like,
Right.
professionally run game, goes toward the purchase of the game. And so we're talking about setting some things up with them that are in that arena, and I really like that idea because
Oh yeah.
I it holds people accountable. They'll actually show up if they're paying
Mhm.
for it, and you're getting an experience with somebody who's good at running the game. The publisher is endorsing them running the game. I don't know. I think
Yeah,
that's a nice
that's
experience.
pretty key only because I've had some bad demoing experiences before. Like I was at Gen Con maybe a few years back, and someone was demoing a game, and it was just me and my friend, and they were like, "Oh, do you want to just set up a two-person game?" And we were like, "Yeah, that's fine." And the demoer was like, "Well, I'll just play with you." And I was like, "That wasn't what we asked for." And they used a strategy that is non-obvious to new players, and they trounced us both. And I was like, "This wasn't a particularly fun experience."
Yeah, I've had a few of those.
Yep, just sort of like, "Oh, why is this happening this way?"
I really like. I've had somewhere I'm like, I know how to play this game. I just want to show it to somebody else who I'm walking around with. Oh, let me go show it to you over here, and then like the person just talks over me the entire. I'm like, I knew how to play the game. Thanks.
Oh, good.
Thanks so much. Thanks so
Thank,
much.
thank you for this gift.
Yeah, well,
Oh,
I mean, there's so many volunteers in those booths, right? And like you get so, I mean, it's exhausting to be in those booths.
mm.
I
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's a tiring experience, but
Yeah. No, that's a hope though that we can pick up some lessons, especially around like keeping games online or accessible for play online. Because like, frankly, right, like I played Castles of Tuscany on Tabletopia. It's not I'm not at the point where I'm like, oh man, I would get rid of my copy of Castles of Tuscany if I could just play it on Tabletopia all the time. I would not, because I'm still bad at drawing cards. Like,
yeah, well, and also like as soon as you're allowed to play with people, you're gonna want to play the board game.
100%. I already have a box of board games that I'm like, my friend down in LA is like, oh man, as soon as we can hang out again, like, we're just gonna have a like maybe a game week, game weekend, unclear, some period of time that's just games.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
you're not. It's not going to be a substitute, but I think it's supplementing in a way that it wasn't before. Or like before, it was supplementing only if somebody had put an app together, and then it's like it has to hit a certain amount of success, and then people have to be willing to invest, whatever tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars in building out the app,
yep,
and that takes a lot of time. And so, 3 years after it's done pretty well, you have or 3 years after it's launched, you have an app for it. And by then, like people aren't so excited about it anymore, especially with the volume of games that are coming out. And now it's like,
right.
oh, people are playtesting on all these platforms, so
Hmm. Oh, it's been huge. I've done some Kickstarter previews where they've had like Tabletopia implementations or Tabletop Simulator implementations, and it has been, in a lot of times, the only way I've been able to get the game played. Because I'm just like, this is
Are
so
they
much
are the
better than.
publishers demoing for you that way?
So
Or are they just giving you access?
they've actually just been giving me access. I actually generally prefer not to do demos because I like for review purposes to be able to just like take the rule book and like if a publisher's demoing it for me, that's a very specific way to learn the game.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if I have the rule book in my hand and we're trying to pick it up and like play it from like a review perspective, I'm also trying to evaluate, can I learn the game from the rules you provided me? And so I tend to try and just like kind of go it alone.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, then your
Yeah,
experience is closer to somebody who's like reading your articles.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it can happen. I think there's a lot of good stuff there. I'm just interested to see how they start, like maybe even hybridizing some of these things, because just I think that a lot of some of the stuff has been good, but I think that making it clear to people why attending a virtual convention is like something they really want to do, I haven't quite gotten from a lot of the board game conventions yet. And
Yeah.
maybe I'm fully confident that part of that is also that a lot of board game conventions were frankly just caught off guard by all of this and like
Yeah.
have
I
had
mean,
to completely change things up, but still I will be interested to see what happens in 2021.
yeah. I mean, I'm glad that we still get to see people getting together and like, get people
Mhm.
getting a different sort of platform, or it's an excuse for people to play together who like online who might not have played together before. I mean,
Mhm.
even on air, like right, even in streaming, just it gives you access to some, it does expose you to different people than you might
Oh
see
yeah,
day
some of
to
my
day.
friends are like too busy during conventions to play games, but we can actually play games online during virtual conventions because they don't actually have to like, you know, occupy or staff a booth for 12 hours. They can actually run around and just be like, yeah, I don't have any responsibilities.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I think I just really hope that publishers keep doing demos online like that,
Me too.
because I do think it's a really, I don't know, like I think it's weird. I want everyone to sell games, but I also want people to own games that they actually play
Sure.
and not just like hoard games that they don't play. And so,
I'm
I
like,
mean,
oh no, I'm being called out on my own show
well,
again.
I mean, I do the same thing, but I just, I always also really like calling my collection, being like, these are the ones that I actually really I want to like keep playing. And
Yeah.
so
I usually call mine with a yearly charity raffle where people come over to my home and we just raffle off all the games that I'm not really playing anymore. And now I just have a very large box of games I'm not really playing anymore in the basement because I had planned for all of 2020 to have that raffle 10 days ago. Would have probably been roughly when it was.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
But I think people are still going to buy a lot of games. I really wish that there was a way to partner with like local retail stores so that we were supporting them because I'm worried about them right now, and I don't think Amazon needs any more money or support.
Yeah, that's true. I'm a little bit less worried about my local retail store because they were using a bunch of my photos without my permission for in-store advertising. They don't watch this video and they already left town. Jerks. But that was the whole day. You're just sitting in the store playing like a game and you're like, is that one of... Oh, buddy. I was so angry. But
Did you confront them about it?
I did. There were some emails exchanged. Nothing really came of it.
That sounds frustrating.
It was a super cool thing to have happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Anyway, I don't want to keep you too late. I think we're approaching the hour and a half, hour 45, almost 2 hour-ish mark. Which is going to be a long episode. Some of the episodes are long. Some of the episodes are... gradually, these have just been getting longer over time, and I think that's just the nature of things. But
well, I mean, at least we didn't capture like the hour before when we were talking, because that would just be
true. All that stuff has been completely eradicated from any
we
sort
didn't
of
even play a game and it lasted this long.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. It's been a blast chatting with you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Thanks for letting me grump on your show.
Oh, mid. We should just have like a separate segment that's just like games with Amber at the Art Grump. Mm-hmm. And it's just someone comes on like, here's a game I think is lovely. And you're like,
glad you think it's lovely. That's nice for you.
That's so good. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a blast, and looking forward to the next time we can hang out.
Yep. Thanks, Eric. Take care.
Yeah. Well, that's all the time we've got for you tonight. So looking forward to seeing you next time on Late Night Table Talk.